Hello my viewers and welcome back to my channel. Subscribe, like and feel free to be part of this conversation. Now, as we journey through the annals of time, we often find ourselves faced with enigmatic relics that whisper tales of civilizations long past. Among these silent storytellers stand the statues of ancient Egypt, bearing witness to the glory of a civilization that once flourished along the banks of the Nile. Yet behind their stoic facades lies a hidden truth obscured by the sands of time and the scars of history. Now, in this compelling exploration, we take a look into the perplexing mystery of defaced statues, where the chisel marks of the past reveal a poignant struggle for cultural identity and the erasure of Africa's enduring presence. So join me as we unravel the enigma of Egypt's noseless statues, uncovering the echoes of colonial conquest and the resilience of a people determined to reclaim their heritage from the shadows of antiquity. Here are the videos. I will be right back.
Story, but I want to show it to you. That when the colonizers went into Kemet, renamed it Egypt, how they took the noses off of the statues so that they would not look African. So this is Horus. This is the image of Horus with the nose taken off. And here it is again. As you can see, rather than have these incredibly beautiful parts of our culture represent us, they destroyed them by removing the noses so that the noses did not look African. I tell you, standing here, I could just weep. I just feel the power of who we are and how much we've lost and how much we need to do.
Here are two reasons why the Europeans shot the noses and the lips off the Egyptian statues. The first one is the most blatant. They were definitely racist and had an inferiority complex and tried to hide the fact that this great civilization had African features. The second reason is because they wanted to destroy the spirit of the statue. Now, in ancient times, whenever you conquered a civilization, you destroyed the images of the rulers. Most spiritual cultures believed when you created an image in the real world, and then that image was then paid homage to by a bunch of people, that image garnered a certain energy then that can live in the spirit world. So they didn't want to destroy the Egyptian images because they still wanted to learn from them. But they shot off the noses so the image couldn't breathe in the spirit world and the image would die. They also shut off the lips so the spirit couldn't talk to you.
The ancient Kemites, not Egyptians, but Kemites, were not Arabs. Arab is an identity that developed 1,000 years later in connection with the Quran and the development of the Arabic language. The ancient Kemites were black African, not like me. My color maybe was in the New Kingdom, but in the Old and Middle Kingdom, they were black African. This has been proven over and over again by Sheikh Anta Diop and others. Linguistic proof, picture proof, craniometric proofs, DNA proofs. They even tested the DNA melanin of mummies. My advice to Africans is that you have to believe in the evidence that is right in front of you. This has been proven over and over again. Don't wait for the white Arab invaders to believe. They won't believe because they have a political interest to not believe. But you believe in the truth.
The dark-skinned people here in Egypt are of completely different features and culture than...
Assalamu alaikum. You mean the alkaline Hamitic features like myself? My skin color, my nose, my small lips, etc.? Sure, maybe the New Kingdom and the Ptolemaic period pharaohs would look like me, such as Ramses III. But I'm mixed. It doesn't say anything about my forefathers. My forefathers are dark-skinned Fulani. And so was the forefathers of Ramses III and these New Kingdom pharaohs, who were exposed to a lot of invasions and trades and immigrations from Europe and other parts of the world. So your argument is essentially like saying, I am brown, I have alkaline features, therefore my great-grandfather was also brown with alkaline Hamitic features. No, he wasn't. It's because my mother is white. So essentially you deny the Old Kingdom and Middle Kingdom pharaohs, which had typical African features, and that is the part of what you say which may be interpreted as a little bit racist. Then you go about comparing modern Egyptian identity and modern Nubian identity with ancient Kemet. That's completely invalid because we don't care about modern Egypt in terms of identities. We care about the ancient Kemites 3,000 years ago. You know, it's 3,000 years. Things have happened that time, right? I mean, you wear a hijab, you're maybe a Muslim, huh? Where the ancient Kemites, Muslim and wearing a hijab. Just trying to prove a point. That came with the Umayyad invasion when Sayyidina Usman got assassinated and the Umayyad cousins took power and invaded North Africa. People migrate tremendously, huh? Look at Dubai today. Most people in Dubai are immigrants. Look at New York, filled with immigrants. Amsterdam, filled with immigrants. The entire North Africa is filled with immigrants. I mean, the true people there are the natives. And what do you think has happened to Egypt the last 3,000 years with invasions from Assyrians, Persians, Phoenicians, Romans, Greeks, you name it. So this argument that land and nation that you today call Egypt has always been like that is completely false. Some people cite the 2017 DNA study, which actually doesn't say what people say it does, because I read the study in the Nature journal. Yeah, that's one study looking at 2 or 3 mummies. What about the 160 mummies that they didn't publish, right? What about the 1990 study that nobody talks about that showed sub-Saharan in the mummies? What about Sheikh Anta Diop's tests and so on? So you cannot just take one study and point to something. Yes, sure, there may be people in Egypt today and Nubia today who are direct distant descendants of some pharaoh. I mean, there would have been many people in ancient Egypt, but since people have migrated there for the last 3,000 years, you can have people in West Africa also are descendants of them. You can have people in Iran who may trace their lineage back to ancient Kemet. I mean, people move. So this kind of argument, let's assume that people don't migrate. People are static only in that geographic region. They don't move. There are no wars. There are no changing of people. It's completely historyless. It's a naive argument that can be disproven as simply as just looking at your random city in Europe today. And the idea that just because I have Alkanan Hamitic futures, my fathers also had Hamitic futures, that can change in 1 or 2 generations. Or the argument that the Egyptians today have some kind of proprietary right to history. I don't know what to say. It's ego, all I can say.
All right, welcome back, my viewers. Now, if we look at history, certain threads stand out with stark clarity, demanding our attention and contemplation. One such thread weaves through the ancient statues of Egypt, where the deliberate removal of noses has sparked intrigue and debate among historians and archaeologists alike. At first glance, these statues appear as timeless guardians of a bygone era, their withered visages gazing stoically into eternity. Yet upon closer examination, the absence of noses unveils a deliberate act of cultural erasure, perpetuated by colonial forces seeking to reshape the narrative of Egypt's past. Now, it is a sobering realization that the very features which once proclaimed the African heritage of these statues were systematically defaced, as colonizers sought to suppress the indigenous identity of Egypt and its people. Now, the act of removing noses was not merely an act of vandalism, but a calculated effort to diminish the African presence in Egyptian society, rewriting history to suit the narrative of the conquerors. The transformation of Kema into Egypt symbolizes this conquest, as the rich tapestry of African civilization was subsumed into the annals of an imperialist agenda. The renaming of cities and the defacement of statues were but manifestations of a broader campaign to assert dominance and control, relegating Africa's contributions to the shadows of antiquity. Yet, despite the scars of colonialism, the spirit of resilience endures. Through diligent scholarship and cultural activism, efforts are underway to reclaim and restore the lost narratives of Egypt's past. Now, the defacement of statues in Egypt can be traced back to the colonial era, particularly during the 19th century when European powers, notably the French and the British, exerted significant influence over the region. Now, as part of their colonial enterprise, these powers sought to reshape the narrative of Egyptian history to align with their own cultural and political agendas. The deliberate removal of noses from statues held symbolic significance. In ancient Egyptian culture, the nose was considered a vital feature, representing not only physical beauty, but also the breath of life and vitality. By defacing these statues, colonizers sought to undermine the cultural identity of Egypt and assert their dominance over the indigenous population. Now, central to the defacement of statues was the erasure of Egypt's African identity. By altering physical features to appear more European or Semitic, colonizers aimed to diminish the continent's historical contributions and perpetuate a Eurocentric view of civilization. Now, this act of cultural appropriation served to reinforce colonial power dynamics and marginalize indigenous voices. The defacement of statues represents a loss not only of physical artifacts, but also of cultural heritage. By altering or destroying statues, colonizers disrupted the transmission of knowledge and obscured the true history of Egypt's rich and diverse civilization. This legacy of cultural vandalism continues to resonate even today. So, understanding the importance of preserving and interpreting historical artifacts in their original context. In recent years, there has been a growing awareness and effort to confront the legacy of colonialism and reclaim lost narratives. Scholars, activists, and cultural institutions are working to uncover hidden histories, challenge colonial narratives, and promote a more inclusive understanding of Egypt's past through initiatives such as decolonizing archaeology and heritage preservation. Strides are being made towards acknowledging and honoring Africa's enduring presence in Egyptian society. The defacement of statues in Egypt is well documented through historical records, archaeological findings, and visual evidence. Numerous statues and sculptures, particularly those dating from the pharaonic period, bear signs of deliberate damage to the nose and other facial features. Examples include iconic statues such as the Great Sphinx of Giza, which is believed to have once had a ceremonial beard that was later removed, and the Colossi of Menon, which have undergone significant restoration efforts to repair damage inflicted over centuries. The motivations behind the defacement of statues were multifaceted. In addition to the asserting colonial dominance, colonizers often sought to justify their actions through pseudoscientific theories of racial superiority. By altering the physical appearance of statues to conform to European ideals of beauty and civilization, colonizers perpetuated orthodox ideologies that continue to have far-reaching consequences even today. The legacy of cultural appropriation in Egypt extends beyond the physical defacement of statues to include the plundering of artifacts, the exploitation of archaeological sites, and the misrepresentation of indigenous cultures in Western narratives. Now, this legacy continues to shape perceptions of Egypt and its people, perpetuating stereotypes and erasing the contributions of African civilizations to the world history. The defacement of statues has had lasting repercussions for the identity and representation of Egypt and its people. By distorting physical features and historical narratives, colonizers perpetuated a legacy of cultural erasure that continues to impact how Egyptians are perceived and represented in the modern world. Efforts to reclaim and restore Egypt's cultural heritage are thus not only acts of preservation, but also acts of resistance against centuries of colonial oppression. We have finally come to the end of the video. What do you have to say? Share your thoughts as well in the comment section. Thank you for watching and see you in my next video.